Well, hello everyone, this is CJ with Cycletron. Decided to do a quick overview of my son's 2022 Triumph Street Triple RS. It's a fantastic bike. I'm going to talk about some of the features that I noticed about this bike, what it's like to ride. It'll let you hear the engine note. My son's right behind me on my 2020 Katana. It's really a great overall bike. Got a 4.6 gallon tank, 366 pound dry weight, wet, it's around 420 pounds, 4.6 gallon fuel capacity. So with reported 45 mile per gallon fuel efficiency, it puts you out over 200 miles on one tank of gas, which is really good. I really like the seating position. Of course, it's the typical sit-up position you expect for a naked or Street Fighter bike. Mid controls, but you know, I got a nice amount of weight on my forearms and wrists. Not too much. I'm not bent over the tank or anything. I feel like I'm got plenty of room on the pegs here. I'm 6 foot tall. I'm down to about 155 pounds, but the bike fits me quite well. I'm very comfortable on it. This bike is just so utterly smooth, but you can spool it up pretty quickly with this triple though. The engine compression is 12.5 to 1. Has 5 riding modes, which includes one mode for full user preferences, track mode, raid mode, sport, road mode, normal riding mode. Redline at 14,000 RPM, so it's definitely a high revving bike. So we'll do a little bit of riding here, then I'll cut to my son who will be talking about this bike, what he likes about it, his previous riding experience, why he selected this bike, go over some of the key features just to give you an overview of why he selected this bike. He gave it a lot of thought before he got it and certainly since then, so please stay tuned for that portion of the video. My son will also talk about who he thinks this bike is most suited for. You have to indulge me here for a second. I gotta ask how he likes the Katana. He says it's incredibly smooth. He loves it. How do you like the exhaust note on that Brock? He says it's really verbally and nice, not too loud, not distracting at all. I got the more Mafia tune without the pops and bangs to keep it smooth on decel. Of course, the flash he put on the ECU for the tune was really good. Okay, back to the 2022 Street Triple RS. This bike is just so much fun. I'll let him tell you who he thinks the bike's for. I think this bike is just for about anybody, really. Now, you wouldn't do a crazy amount of long distance touring bike on a bike like this. Obviously, it's not really set up for that. But it's got a much broader set of capabilities than, say, just a trek bike would have. You know, you read some of the other press on this bike, and they, I think, unduly emphasize the track capabilities of this bike, which it really has. They're really suggesting it for people who want to do that and are really only going to have one bike. I think you can ride this bike pretty sporty on roads as long as you're not trying to drag your knee or do anything crazy. So yeah, I highly recommend this bike. But again, stay tuned for my son's take on it. All right, here's my son. I'm going to throw it over to him. He'll tell you what he likes about this bike and a few other things.
Yeah, this is my Triumph Street Triple RS, and it's been my third bike. I started out on a Kawasaki Z125, then I moved up to a Yamaha Mt-03, and after a close call on the highway on my Mt-03, we decided that it was about time to get a bigger bike so I can be more comfortable if I need to accelerate really fast or whatever. And we felt like this was a really great choice because, I mean, I thought it just looked fantastic. A lot of people, they don't really like the color scheme, you know, the black and this kind of neon green. They usually opt for that. It's like this silver, this metallic silver with red accents. But I really thought this was a great color, and it's really unique, I think. Some things I like about this bike is it's got these Pirelli super courses on them, and they're just tremendously sticky to the road, and it allows the bike to handle really, really well through twisty roads or just around town. And also with that, you have on this side the quick shifter, which it's a really, really smooth quick shifter. You can even use it to, it's up and down. It has an auto blipper, so If you need a engine brake a little bit, you can use that downshift and help slow you down. And so I think that really allows it to be a really comfortable bike to ride.
You want to start it up and talk about some other things like the exhaust note, how it feels to ride, and so on?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Alrighty, so I'm gonna go ahead and start it up here. I'll just let you hear it. It sounds fantastic in person. I feel like it's one of the few bikes, maybe second to some Ducati, like Panigale bikes, that really have a fantastic exhaust note from the factory. And I think that's one reason people really like these bikes. Is a lot of the time they'll just keep the stock exhaust because they feel it's so great. Another thing about this bike that I like a lot is it's an inline triple with a tremendously linear power band. And that's not, when you purchase a bike, you're not really looking at the power band, but after the fact, it's just something that you really really tend to appreciate how smooth it is when you accelerate. It's pushing about I think about 120 horsepower, which is definitely on the high end for kind of a middle of the road bike.
Well, and we debated whether it was a good idea. I mean, one thing you didn't mention is that you started out riding two different dirt bikes,
Right.
a 55cc and a 110 Yamaha dirt bike before you went through your street bikes. But we had a long talk about being responsible, but getting you a bike that had more power to be able to get out of the way of traffic hazards. And that was the scary episode on the Mt-03, just trying to get out in front of a truck that suddenly started accelerating after you initiated a change in lanes. So we had a long talk about basically just riding responsibly, having the power on tap if you needed it, but just really all about enjoying the bike.
Right. And so I feel like with the amount of power that it has, it's enough power to really put you in danger, as is any street bike. But it's not such that if I feel like I need an exorbitant amount of experience riding in order to feel comfortable on it. This is a significant upgrade from my Mt-03, which had about 40 horsepower. So effectively triple the amount of power, and yet I rode it for about 10 minutes in a parking lot, and I already felt extremely comfortable on, which I feel like is not a characteristic of a lot of bikes where you kind of make that big jump in power. I feel like it's just extremely easy to handle. And also, I hear a lot of people, they start out on these bikes, and I'm not sure if that would be a great idea. You'd obviously have to bring into question whether you'd think you'd be able to handle it or not. But the platform is definitely something that a newer rider could handle pretty well.
So what other bikes did you consider trading up from your Mt-03?
So trading up from my Mt-03, I was looking something around, I wanted a Mt-09, but we decided that, well, first off, you couldn't even get an Mt-09, and it was probably going to be a bit too much for me to handle. So we were looking around at Mt-07, XSR 700, or a BMW F900, and I would have been happy with either of those bikes, but the dealership that we went to, we really kind of decided on the F900 was going to be my next bike, and I thought it just looked fantastic, because that is the American version of the Husqvarna F900, or Nuda 900. I thought that bike was just awesome. But then the more I looked at it, they went about $12,000 for it, and I really, with all of the upgrades that they put on it, it got it to that 12,000 mark, but the MSRP was about 9,000, and I just didn't feel like you got that extra $3,000 value on it. Whereas with this bike, I was paying, you know, I got it for the MSRP of 13,000, and I thought it was just a lot of value.
Well, that was out the door price.
That was the out the door price.
I mean, so this is a 2022, but they'd had it for a while. I think the color scheme wasn't appealing to some other people. So essentially he got a $1,000 discount if you consider that people normally charge you dock fees, setup fee, and freight. So he was out the door at 13. So what are your plans for this bike? How long do you see riding it? How long are you gonna keep it? That sort of thing.
I really haven't even begun to think about my next bike. I really think this is just such a fantastic bike. You know, it's really something that you could keep forever if you wanted to. So that's kind of my plans. I plan on keeping it for at least about 4 years, because I really just don't see getting rid of it. It's such a great bike.
Yeah, it's a great looking bike. It's got Brembos up front. You said the tires are real sticky. It's got 5 riding modes.
I'd say another kind of quirk of this bike is the headlights. So it's got it kind of looks like a Hornet almost, and that's what it looks like with the daytime running lights. And then you click this switch right here, and then it turns on the other one, and it's kind of satisfying. It's got this little trigger here, and that's kind of just an interesting thing about this bike that I thought it's kind of not something you'd really think about, but it's really cool, you know, riding it around. It also has some really great controls. I mean, along with that, you can easily access everything that you'd want. So, like, switch from what's being displayed, and the turn signals right here are really easy. You could also switch between rider modes just with this button. Say if you're entering some rain and it's in rain mode. So switch that back.
So the only odd thing really I can think of is we've already done the first service on this, did the oil and filter change, and we took these panels off just to get better access, and they were extremely difficult to access the bolts. They are at a weird angle. Took me more time than just about any other bike I've worked on to change the oil in this thing, just because of those panels. The other thing is I couldn't find the oil capacity anywhere in the manual, and in fact when I went to the local dealership here to buy an oil and filter, they sold me 5 quarts when it turned out I needed just a hair over 3. So apparently they are trying to discourage people from working on their own bikes by not even telling you how much oil goes in the thing.
Yeah, I would say that's kind of been the only negative experience with Triumph, as opposed to other dealerships that we've worked with. Another thing I really like about this bike, since this is the RS, you get some, I think it has better suspension, adjustable suspension, and just, it's kind of a nicer handling package. It's really got these fantastic levers on them. They're MCS levers, and they're just extremely nice. They just, I don't know how to describe it. It's just a really smooth range of motion, and it's highly adjustable also.
All right, well, good job, son.
All right.
Well, all right. Everyone, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Hit that like button. Be sure to leave some comments. Thanks very much, and please stay tuned for future videos.